Have you ever felt excluded by your own family? Until you discovered it was a choice made by someone you least expected. This is my story. My name is Pamela, and at 38, I found myself facing one of the greatest tests of love and pain my father could have given me. But before I get to the end, I need to tell you everything from the beginning. I grew up in a family with 3 siblings. John, the oldest, always arrogant and bossy. Sophia, the perfect daughter who never got dirty helping anyone. And me, the middle child, always trying to fill in the gaps. While John pursued a career in the corporate world and Sophia flaunted her psychology degree like a trophy, I was the invisible one, the one who worked in lackluster offices, did small freelance jobs, and was always available for any household emergencies. I was the person everyone called when they needed something, but never really noticed. Then, last year, I received news that would change everything. My father, a strong and proud man who had never asked for help with anything in his life, was diagnosed with terminal cancer. When he learned of his illness, he didn't want hospitalizations. He wanted to die at home, surrounded by us, his family, and so began my journey as a caregiver. While John and Sophia showed up sporadically, making excuses about their busy schedules, I abandoned my routine completely. I worked remotely while caring for him, learning how to administer medications, apply bandages, and maintain his dignity. Sometimes he would look at me with a mixture of gratitude and sadness in his eyes, as if he knew how much I was sacrificing for him. But we never spoke of it. Our relationship had always been this way, silent, yet deep. In recent months, it became clear that John and Sophia were more concerned with their financial future than their emotional present. They constantly asked about the will, speculating about who would inherit what. There was barely concealed tension on the rare occasions we were all together. I knew the value of the estate was significant: our childhood home, investments, and some rental properties, but that never interested me. All I cared about was ensuring my father had peace in his final days, and then he left. It was peaceful, almost as if he simply fell asleep after a long conversation between us. Crying, I called John and Sophia. They both came immediately, but I could see in their faces that there was something more than grief. It was anticipation. The reading of the will took place a few days later, in an austere office with walls covered in legal books, and a lawyer who looked like something out of an old movie. "Thank you for being here," the lawyer said, adjusting his glasses. "Let's get started." John crossed his legs and leaned forward eagerly. Sophia stood straight, elegant as ever. I, sitting between them, kept my eyes fixed on the floor, trying to process everything. The lawyer cleared his throat and began. "As you know, your father left clear instructions regarding the division of his assets." He paused dramatically before continuing. "The main property will be transferred in full to John. The financial investments will be divided equally between Sophia and John." And my hands began to tremble. I waited for the rest. I waited for my name, but it didn't come. And I asked, my voice trembling. The lawyer looked at me hesitantly. "I'm sorry, Pamela, but it seems your father decided not to include you in his will." It was like being punched in the gut. I stood up abruptly, unable to contain my emotions. "That can't be true," I exclaimed. "I've taken care of him all this time." John snorted, shaking his head. "Pamela, come on. You know Dad always preferred those with ambition. Maybe he thought you didn't need it as much as we did." Sophia nodded, as if in agreement. "It's hard, yes, but maybe it's for the best. You've always had this sacrifice thing, right? Dad must have thought you'd find another way. Another way? I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell them that sacrifice wasn't a choice, but a necessity. That every day with our father had been a gift, even if painful. But I couldn't. My words stuck in my throat. The lawyer broke the awkward silence. There's one last thing. However, your father left a letter to be read after the will was made public. Would you like to hear it now? We all nodded, still stunned. He took out a sealed envelope and handed it to me. With trembling hands, I opened the letter and began to read aloud. Dear Pamela, John, and Sophia, if you are reading this letter, it means I am already at peace. First and foremost, I want you to know that I love each of you. Each child represents a unique part of my life. There's life, and I'm proud of who they've become. However, I also know that not everyone has demonstrated the same level of commitment to our family. I looked at John and Sophia, who were avoiding my gaze. I continued, Pamela, my daughter, you have been the light these past few months. You gave up your life to care for me, even when others went about their daily lives without hesitation. I made a difficult choice by leaving you out of the will, because I know you don't need these material possessions to find happiness. But I also made another choice, one that I hope will make up for everything you've been through. My heart raced. The lawyer intervened again. There is an additional clause in the will. If Pamela chooses to accept, she has the right to redistribute half of the estate as she sees fit. There was absolute silence. John and Sophia gaped, unable to believe what they had heard. It took me a few seconds to process. My father had given me final control. It wasn't just about money. It was about justice. What are you going to do? John asked finally, a mixture of anger and fear in his voice. I took a deep breath. I knew exactly what to do. I'll accept the clause, I replied firmly, and I'll redistribute half of the estate to charities that support family caregivers, people who face challenges similar to mine. Additionally, I'll use a portion to create an educational fund for young people who can't afford their own education. John exploded. You're crazy. This is our money. Not anymore, I replied calmly. Dad trusted me to make the decision, and this is my decision. Sophia tried to argue, but I could tell her words were hollow. She knew I held the power there. They could complain, but the choice had already been made in that moment. I felt something I hadn't experienced in a long time. Freedom. For the first time, I wasn't being underestimated. For the first time, I was seen. After all the tension had subsided, I returned home and spent hours reflecting. I understood that the lesson my father left me went beyond revenge or material reward. He wanted to teach me that true value lies not in what we accumulate, but in the impact we make. By redirecting those resources, I was honoring his legacy and creating something greater than any financial inheritance. Today, I continue to live my life, but differently. I stopped worrying about what others think and started focusing on what truly matters. I learned that sometimes we are put in difficult situations not to suffer, but to grow, and that, no matter how unfair the world may seem, there is always room for make choices that promote kindness. If you're going through something similar, feeling invisible, ignored, or betrayed by those who should love you, remember, life has incredible ways of balancing things out. Trust the process, find strength within, and make choices that reflect who you truly are. If you enjoyed this story, share it with someone who needs to hear these words today. Subscribe to the RevengeSurge channel for more inspiring stories. New videos are posted here every day. See you next time.